know what is coming.
Hey there guys, this is Reckles with WTBGold, and I'm so excited. Today we have a special guest directly from Blizzard, Paul Noman, to help us learn about all the cool new things coming in patch 8.3. How are you doing today, Paul? Okay, yeah, no, we can go ahead and begin. So patch 8.3 is looking to be one of the most interesting and important pieces of World of Warcraft's lore we've ever had. Like, we're button heads directly with an old god. It's really cool. Are we going to see any new herbs and ore to help tell that story? Maybe some void-themed stuff?
No.
Oh, okay, yeah. That makes sense. That makes sense. The landscape's not going to change just because, it's a couple years later. So all the Oldham denizens, all the humanoids are still going to drop Ember Silk, and all the animals are still going to drop Savage Leather.
No.
All right, cool. Yeah, no, let's move on. Crafting stuff. So with the new raid with Nyalotha, we've got some cool new corrupted gear that we're gonna see, and this is really interesting trade-off mechanics where the gear has procs on it that can buff you up, but you pay the price of occasionally getting slowed, or if things get really bad, you fear nearby friendly players. Are we gonna see anything like that from professions to again help tell the story? Maybe like some.
No.
Oh, but surely like enchanting, you have like a weapon proc that doubles your damage for 10 seconds, but takes you down to 1 health. Something fun like.
No.
All right. Alchemy, any new like flasks or potions?
No.
Okay. Inscription. There's new like bug enemies out. Can you like turn your warlock pet into a bug?
No.
Uncanny combatants gear. So we are getting the new eye level 400 crafted gear. This is blacksmiths, tailors, and leatherworkers. I heard a lot of feedback that in Nazjatar, the notorious crafted gear felt worthless and like not worth crafting because it was so easy to just get bind on account tokens that were a higher eye level. Even though the eye levels are different now, are you removing that concept of BOA tokens?
No.
All right. No one likes Expulsum. Are you removing that?
No.
For real? Like people are spending currently they're spending. If you have blacksmithing, tailoring, and leatherworking, they're going through like 50 to 100 Expulsum a day. That's 6,000 Tide Spray linen per day that they have to turn into Tide Spray linen bracers and then scrap at the scrapper for an hour. Are you at least keeping the amount of Expulsum people need the same?
No.
You're doubling it?
No.
Triple. You're tripling it. Okay. So that means anyone who has all 3 crafting professions is going to have to spend 3 hours a day just making Expulsum. Don't you want them to get out into your new content world and actually play the game?
No.
Cool. Well, thanks for sitting down and talking, Paul.
They know you will be its herald.
Hey there, guys, it's Reckles. So I don't actually hate everything coming in 8.3. I'm just a little confused, as you may have noticed in the open, like why they aren't using professions more to tell the story. Like, not everyone raids, not everyone does Mythic Plus, not everyone does PvP, or even the world quests every day, but every player has professions, so this is one of the few tools they can use to tell a story. But let's get into what gold making changes are going to be coming in patch 8.3. So first, we're going to start off with just a general overview, like spoiler warning, I guess, but all of this stuff is just the first 2 or 3 quests. So N'Zoth is coming. He has been unleashed. He's out to kill the world, and he's starting by trying to corrupt some Titan technology in Vale of Eternal Blossoms and Oldham. So we go out to Uldum and we do some daily quests there. Interesting side note, they are daily quests. It's a daily quest hub and not scattered world quests, which keeps your map a little cleaner. And I don't know, there are pros and cons to each, but it's interesting. If you're just out doing your daily quests on an alt, it's a lot easier. The map looks cleaner. It's less intimidating. But don't worry, there is lots of little stuff you can do if you're a min-maxer. From the daily quests, you get coalescing visions, and you use these coalescing visions to talk to Wrathion and open up a horrific vision, which is like if Stormwind or Org were corrupted by N'Zoth, and if Anduin was like really into tentacle things. And honestly, it's genuinely scary. Like if you turn the wrong corner, there's a bunch of orphans playing catch over the corpse of Orphan Matron. You know, little Timmy and his white cat? Well, you kill Timmy and his cat eats him. It's not okay. But when you successfully complete one of the horrific visions, you get an item that you can turn into Wrathion, and it upgrades a legendary cloak that he gives you, and it upgrades your resistances to N'Zoth's mind games and your insanity and your corruption levels, so you can wear essentially better and better gear from the raid, and you can last longer in the horrific visions if you aren't a raider. And that is it. That's 8.3. Now, the important thing for gold makers to take away from this is that because we're going to be in Vale and Uldum, we're not going to be in Nazjatar, and there are no new enhancement crafts, no new enchantments or jewel crafting cuts or alchemy flasks, nothing like that. So, since everything's still using Nazjatar materials, but you don't get them in the current content, we'd expect the price to rise as the supply of those materials falls. So normally I'd say that this would be a good flipping opportunity, and on some servers it might be, but I've noticed something over the past 5 patches or so that might make it not actually worth investing in. And here's what I mean. What we have right now is supply and demand, and I'm going to call this the natural supply and demand, where you have what the price should be. And in the future, supply should fall, bringing the price up. So start low, sell high. But what we're seeing is now we've got a whole bunch of people who expect prices to go up, so they're buying more Xanthid. They're stocking up tens of thousands of Xanthid, and that drives the price up now. And then in the future, they dump all that. Yes, the natural supply will decrease, but everyone's dumping all these herbs they've been stocking up on. That increases the supply of the herbs. Now, will it make the price of the herbs drop or stay constant or rise? I don't know. No one knows, but it is a trend that I've noticed. So if you're on a high pop server with lots and lots of gold makers, rather than seeing the price increase, you might see it decrease because of flippers are stocking up on these things. If you know your server and your competition, make an educated decision. But personally, I'm not risking it. I'm fine. I'm just gonna sell it at whatever the price the market asks. Next up, we have the auction house, and I did a whole video that I'll link right here if you'd like to get my full and complete thoughts on the auction house. But the main talking points are that the 20% auction house fee is going away. The new UI is great, and we can favorite things now for easy sorting and purchasing things that you buy regularly. So that's nice. It's a lot more user friendly. The stack sizes are going away for commodities, which in general is a good thing. There's some problems that come from that. Unfortunately, some of the things I don't like about the commodities exchange section is that it defaults to the same price as the cheapest thing on the auction house. And because it does that and uses last in, first out, there's no incentive for people to there's no incentive for sellers to undercut, because with last in, first out, if you post 100 things and then someone else posts 100 things and someone else posts 100 things and then someone comes along and buys 150, yours doesn't sell. Now, that's essentially the same thing that already happens, but one of the big differences is that Right now, if you post something up and someone else posts something up at the same price, the buyer makes a decision on whose items they're going to buy. The buyer can't make that decision anymore. It's only the most recent person who posted things up. So there's no incentive for you as a seller to lower the price. And yeah, everyone hates it when someone drops the price and undercuts by a huge amount. And Blizzard can fix that by just having a recommended 1% undercut or something like that. But by removing the incentive to undercut at all, and in fact recommending you post at the same price, that removes downward price pressure, which means you're only left with upward price pressure. When you don't have balanced price pressure, prices spiral up out of control. So we're about to enter an era of massive inflation that will only slow down when prices just get too ridiculous for people to be able to afford. Okay, so let's get into the gathering professions. We're going to start off with tailoring, deep sea satin, tide spray linen, and gilded seaweed. Drop off any humanoid mob or mogu or aberration in either Vale or Oldham. There are a bunch of okay farming spots. I have two favorites. One, there's a quest that sends you out to the gate of the August Celestials, and there's this Mogu invasion happening. They're all over the place in Kun Lai, and they all drop the cloth you need. So if you never turn in that quest and just hang out killing all those dudes, then you'll have a whole bunch of cloth, and it'll be great. But even faster than that, there's a spot in Oldham on the southeast, over by the water, where there's a whole bunch of like Sphinx-looking cat, horse, dog men, and whenever they attack you, they put a dot on you that increases in damage, but also does an AoE around you that stacks. So if you can survive getting to 10 stacks, you're doing like 25,000 damage per second to everything around you. You just pull as big as you can, and you just like two-shot everything. It's fantastic. For skinning, all land animals drop dredged leather, bloodstained bones, tempest hide, and calcified bones. Water animals only drop crag scales, and I haven't been able to find anything that drops shimmer scale. Skinning's kind of awkward because like there's a really good spot to farm dredged leather in Nazjatar. You just run back and forth between all the snapdragons. Here, like, there's animals all over, but they're really spread out. The only really worthwhile spot that I found are some wolves over in Southwest Vale. So for herbalism, there's no Xanthid anywhere. You're going to have to go back to Nazjatar for that, or stock up now. Mist of Pandaria, herbs, and Cataclysm stuff, Whiptail and Cinderbloom. And the interesting thing that might happen here is Vial of the Sands is a great moneymaker for alchemists, but if everyone's going to be just kind of casually farming up Whiptail and Cinderbloom and Volatile Life, we'd expect the price of those materials to go down as more people are undercutting. And then the price of Vial of the Sands would also go down. But all that is assuming the current auction house where there's an incentive to undercut. With the new auction house, I have no idea what's going to happen. For mining, same thing. No osmonite, no storm silver or monolite, just ghost iron ore, elementium, and pyrium. And that means that things like living steel are going to drop in price, along with pyrite bars, which are again used for Vial of the Sands. So all the Mist of Pandaria high-end crafted stuff and all the high-end Cataclysm crafted stuff, expect those to drop in price. And then for the final gathering profession, fishing, let's just call this cooking, because there aren't any raid buff foods coming, any new raid materials. So Mythic Plus and raids will continue using 8.0 and 8.2 food, but Horrific Visions have 5 new food items that give you really cool, unique little benefits. So like one reduces your aggro radius, one increases your move speed, one gives you just constant healing every second. My favorite one, though, is called Kebab, and it just restores 10% of your sanity, which in a horrific vision, you just slowly lose sanity over time. So once you build up your cloak, you just run through the first little section, kill all the enemies in the first section, and then you just eat a kebab, and that refills your sanity right up before you go into one of the harder sections. So you just go in at 100%. And there's lots of little things and talents and food items that you can buff yourself with. But this is nice. The kebab is nice because it doesn't override any stat buff food that you have. Now, these horrific vision buff foods use 2 new types of fish and 1 new type of meat. The fish are the malformed gnashers and the aberrant void fins. The gnashers I got twice as often when fishing in Oldham, and the void fin I got twice as often when fishing in Vale. So if you want to target one particular thing, you know where to go now. Oldham for gnashers, Vale for void fins, and then there's also questionable meat. Questionable meat was what I always seem to be out of in my testing, and this you get from just killing any animal in either zone. And again, the only real force spawn that I've found are the wolves in Southwest Vale. Now, as far as pricing on these go, I'm not really sure what to expect, because whereas raid food, you wipe 10, 20, 50, 100 times a night, so you go through lots and lots of food buffs, but with these, you only have 1 or 2 attempts that you can do per week, but everyone's going to be doing them, so I don't really know. I don't know what's going to happen. It'll be kind of interesting to see, but I do think people will buy these less often than they buy raid food. Okay, so away from the gathering professions, onto the crafting professions. We'll have the uncommon combatants gear. This is eye level 400 crafted gear for tailors, blacksmiths, and leather workers. Initially, I was kind of frustrated that they have a BOA token again, but after spending a couple of days doing all the quests and killing a bunch of the rares, I didn't actually get very many of them. I think I got an average of like 2 per day, and they're class specific. So you aren't going to have just this massive stockpile and you go out for, an hour and you can totally gear up an alt. So maybe the uncanny gear will sell more than they have in the past. Now, one of the things that is just a con, these new crafts take 3 expulsum each. So this means if you're regularly restocking things, you're going to have to spend 3 times the amount of time you normally would just scrapping Tide Spray linen bracers. But it does mean that the price of Tide Spray, like increased demand for Tide Spray, means prices are going to go up. Now, we'll see if people doing 2x4 farms can keep up with that demand and keep the auction house stocked. And mentioning Expulsum, we do have the same bind on pickup raid quality gear as we've had in previous patches. Interesting thing with this, the initial rollout was Sanguicel gear that, you go out, you do the raid for a little bit, you get 20 Sanguicel and you turn it into 340, and then you get a 355, and then you get a 370. Well, what they learned from that was you end up, after you make the final thing, with just a whole bunch of Sanguicel in your bags and nothing to do with it. So they had to introduce a Sanguicel dump. They did the same thing with Breath of Winsomnia and had the same problem. And so in 8.2, they came out with this quest item, an Abyssal Focus. They're still saying you're required to go out and raid, but because it's a quest item, you don't end up with a bunch of things in your bag. So I like that. Clean bags are nice. For the Void Focus in 8.3 specifically, after a little bit of time in the main storyline, you'll unlock something called Visions of N'Zoth. This is just kind of an arena thing that you farm up coalescing visions, and you just stay in as long as you can and kill a whole bunch of things, and you slowly get coalescing visions. Well, in the first one you do, an enemy will drop the pattern for the Void Focus, and then I would recommend going out to the west side of Oldham and kill some bugs there. There's like lots of little swarms of bugs, and that gives you the materials you need for the Void Focus. Takes like 5 minutes to go kill enough bugs to farm one of these up. And then you will be able to make the eye level 440 crafted gear. Then after you make that, you can empower your void focus in order to make the 455 gear, but that does require the raid, or it used to. After you do the raid and kind of cap out how many materials you have from there, you can now do battlegrounds and arenas and a couple other things in order to just push yourself over the edge, so you don't have to raid in order to get good gear in 8.3, which I like. I wish they did that with Marks of Honor, because the uncanny gear still requires Marks of Honor. And mentioning raiders and min-maxers, you're going to want to get your rep up. And for this, pet battles are part of that. Whether you like it or not, the pet battles give reps. So if you want to be the best, you got to go out and pet battle. And it's the same style of fights as on Nazjatar, one single boss. And for one single boss fights, the best team has been the same since Tanan Jungle. You have one pet dot them up, and then you have one pet debuff them. Now, the best team for this, there's an S tier, and then a backup. Your Bone Shard, you get this from the first boss Marigar in ICC. He has Blistering Cold and Chop, which gives the opponent like 7 different dots or something. And then you bring out Icky to Black Claw and Flock, and that just annihilates any of the enemies you'll come across. If you don't have those, you can use Unborn Valkyr and either Icky or the Zandalari Kneebiter in order to do the same thing. And of all those, Icky, the Kneebiter, and Bone Shard do tend to spike in price whenever new content comes out. So here's a video on that, and a more in-depth look at the strategy and where to farm these up. And a little tip for raiders: we'll have the Lightning Forged Augment Rune. This is rep gated and is a permanent augment rune. And while 50k is a healthy chunk of change, this will save you gold in the long run if your raid lead doesn't provide free augment runes. Another thing for raiders, there is a mount that drops out of the heroic raid, the Uncorrupted Voidwing. So heroic raid carries will be a thing. And then there's a different mount that also drops on Mythic mode, the Nyalotha All-Seer. So anyone who's sold Jaina carries in the past knows that you can make a healthy chunk of change from selling carries if your guild is geared enough and skilled enough and already has the mount. Other mount things, there's the Elusive Quick Hoof, which you feed Seaside Leafy Greens mix to an alpaca. I don't know much about how this mount actually works, but Seaside Leafy Greens mix is just something you buy off a vendor, but people are just going to get it from the auction house because they're lazy and they don't want to fly around all over the place. So just keep Seaside Leafy Greens mix up on the auction house, and you'll probably sell some occasionally to mount collectors. There's also a Male Muncher in Horrific Visions, and I don't know what the Male Muncher is. I think it's a rare spawn, but I don't know what this... Does this mean that the mount has a mailbox on it? Because that'd be really cool. This would be great for gold makers, because as much as I love Katie Stampwhistle, once she shows up once, she is very busy for the next 3 hours and doesn't want to show up again. And then I have this under mounts for some reason. There's a rare drop pet from fishing called the Bottle of Gloop. Now, I did about 200 casts on the PTR. I didn't get it. I heard from someone else they got it after 35 casts. So maybe I got unlucky. Maybe they got super lucky. Who knows? We don't know what the drop rate is. We'll get more information on that. But just know, if you really enjoy fishing, there is a pet that you can use to make a little bit extra gold. This pet is cageable and sellable. And then one of the biggest changes to just how gold making is going to work and the importance of carries is the Awakened Mind Borer. Now, this is a kind of scary looking mount that you get when you do every Mythic Plus dungeon at plus 15 or higher. So this maybe was designed as something to just give a reward to people who really like Mythic Plus. But a side effect of that is that mount collectors are now going to have to pay out the butt in order to get it, because currently plus 15s are selling for 200 to 400,000 gold each. And in 8.3, Mechagon is going to add 2 Mythic Plus dungeons. So there's going to be 13 dungeons that you're going to have to pay for a carry with if you don't have the gear. That's so much gold. That's like a Brutus. That's like, this mount is going to cost the same as a Brutosaur. I've talked to a couple of people who sell carries, and that's what they do and how they play. And they said that they'll be charging about 2 million to 3 million for a full clear of all 15 dungeons if one person just wants to buy the mount outright. Now, I don't talk about carries very often because, like, I'm trying to get views, and less than 1% of the WoW population has even stepped foot into a heroic raid. So it's hard to reach a broad audience with it, but it's such a good gold making avenue going forward that if you are geared enough and skilled enough in order to 3-man or 4-man a plus 15, like, do this nonstop until buyers stop asking you for it. And there are great communities out there like Gallywix that will do all the advertising for you. You just have to run the dungeon and they pay you out a cut. And the final thing we're going to be talking about today is Volterra. This is the officially best posting tune in World of Warcraft. So the way you make gold in WoW, you pick a profession, you get all the recipes for that profession, you make one of everything profitable, and that's your starting point. Then from then on, every day you just repost everything you made. And then at the end of the week, you restock the things that sold over the course of the week. And it's give or take about 250K a week from a full restock. Reposting everything takes 5 to 15 minutes a day with Trade Skill Master, and doing your weekly restock takes about 20 minutes per profession. So it's great. It's easy peasy. You know, with a posting tune, 100% of their bag space is dedicated to getting things in it to put up on the auction house. So you spend less time running back and forth to the mailbox. So the Volterra are great because they have a racial trait that gives you 4 extra bag slots. And the maximum number of bag slots that you can have on a World of Warcraft tune is 16 from the backpack, plus 4 for having an authenticator, plus 4 for having a Volterra, plus 96 for having 3 embroidered deep sea bags, plus 1 Madman's luggage, which you purchase from the Mad Merchant for 500,000 gold. And that gives you a grand total of 154 bag slots. Also, Volterra Shaman have fox totems. It's so cute. So that is it. If I left anything out, let me know down below. Like the video if it helped you. And I hope y'all just have a wonderful time going after the old gods and trying to save Azeroth from ruin. Have a great day, everybody. Good luck and happy gold making.
No. 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 Yes.